Boa tarde a todos, sejam muito bem-vindos ao evento. Esse é o nosso 6º dia do PEA 30 anos, e hoje nós iniciamos, então, uma série de 4 mesas redondas que tratam sobre internacionalização do programa. Lembre-se que os certificados serão gerados com a carga horária de participação de cada inscrito, que a lista de presença estará disponível no chat ao longo do evento. Especialmente hoje, o evento tem horário distinto devido aos fusos horários de nossos debatedores de mesa redonda, e a partir de agora, então, a mediação será feita em inglês. For the attendance list, there are options for both Brazilian and international students at the same link. Just keep an eye on the chat. So now I invite Professor Sidney Magela Tomás to introduce Professor Koen Martens. So it's up to you.
Okay, Mateus, thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank you both, Koen and Kirk, who immediately accepted our invitation to share this very important moment in our graduation course. So it's a pleasure to be with you too in the next hour. Thank you very much for sharing your experience with us. And it's also a pleasure to introduce Koen. Koen, in addition to being an excellent scientist, as you know, is a very good friend of mine, as Kirk is too. So Koen Martens graduated in biology at the Ghent University in Belgium. He took his master's at the Australian National University in Canberra and his PhD in zoology at the Ghent University. He's currently a senior scientist at the Royal Belgian Institute of Natural Sciences, head of research and member of the Scientific Council of the Royal Belgian Institute, professor at the University of Ghent, at Shanxi University, China, and PEA, University of Maringá. He's also editor-in-chief of Hydrobiologia and of the European Journal of Taxonomy. Koen mostly uses ostracods as a model group to address questions about aquatic ecology and evolutionary biology, especially in the field of speciation in ancient lakes and the evolution of asexual reproduction. Thank you very much. Now the words are yours, Koen. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Ney. Hello and good afternoon, everybody. My dear friends, PEA is turning 30 years old. Can you believe it? 30 years, 3 decades. Fantastic. And I have had the honor of being part of PEA on and off for about 20 years. And so it's a great honor for me to be invited to share my experiences and some of my reflections on PEA here with you today. So I thank very much the coordinators of PEA and of course also of Nupelia for inviting me. The first time that I went to Brazil was in 1995 in Sao Paulo, where I was teaching in the SIL conference a workshop on biodiversity of freshwater ostracods. In my group, we had several people from Nupelia, certainly Claudinia and Janet, and they invited me to come and see if there were any ostracods in the floodplain of the upper Paraná River. And so it took until 2001 before I could first visit Nupelia PEA and also the fantastic field station of Puerto Rico and the immense floodplain where I have since lost my heart. So that's where it all started in 2001. It took then until 2004 before I could actually be officially involved in a project coordinated by Fabio. May I call Fabio from now on Fabinho, because that's how I know him for the last 20 years. And the title of that project was The Ostracods in the Upper Paraná River Floodplain, Ecology and Biodiversity, because yes, on that first visit in 2001, we did find ostracods and quite a lot of them. So this project had sampling campaigns in March and November 2004, in which I was lucky enough to participate. And in the same project, there was one PhD student, which I co-supervised together with Fabinho, and that was Janet Higuchi, who has been my main host in PEA in Nupelia since. I was lucky enough to be in 2006 in Maringá when Janet was doing her qualification. And so I took some pictures, and you see here very serious people. Janet herself, of course, very, very nervous. And the jury, Claudinha, Fabinho, Felipe, they were going on in Portuguese for many hours about the ostracods for the qualification of Janet's PhD. And on this picture, you can see that the qualification was very successful, everybody very happy. This is how it really started, and I have, as I said, lost my heart in the floodplain and the field station of Porto Rico. I learned a lot there. I learned that I could still stand there with my knee high in the mud, with my preferred habitat. I also learned to know the distinction between open and closed lakes in the floodplain. You know, open lakes very easy, the boat can go through the channel. Closed lakes very difficult. You have to carry a boat which can be very, very heavy. I learned to know some of the students of Janet over the last 20 years, and I made new friends with some of your technical staff. Alfredo, who knows every single square centimeters of the floodplain. Me, who is a fantastic driver, but also a fantastic cook. And I have learned that many Brazilians, not only me, but also Ney, for example, do a very good barbecue. And I was also then very early on accustomed with a concept that I had never heard before, picanha. And I can tell you, I had many reasons to go back to Brazil again and again. And I can assure you that the barbecued picanha in Brazil is definitely a very good reason. During these many visits that I could make to Maringá, I have given occasional talk. So you can see 2001, 2004, every so many years. The 2015 one doesn't really count for PEA because it was the at the occasion of the Limnology conference organized by Nupelia, which is incidentally also where I met Kirk for the first time. Maybe this is a good time to say that for me, it's difficult to make a distinction between Nupelia and PEA. I can see technically that they are different, but it's the same people, it's the same students, the same subjects. So you will pardon me if I refer as much to Nupelia as I refer to PEA. So together with Janet, we co-supervised several PhD and MSc students over the time. And there I have received a few students over the time, of the last years, but this is increasing now. And for example, one of the students, Jonathan, is going to come 2 weeks next month. And Victor, also a student of Janet, is actually coming even for 6 months. Jonathan has a scholarship from a project by Roger, and Victor has a CAPES scholarship for that. Janet came on many different occasions, including several postdocs. And Ney kindly invited me to become a visiting professor of PEA since 2017. My contributions to PEA, the formal contributions to PEA, are summarized now. I mean, sorry, this has to be also done. In 2012, I was invited to give a course on evolution, general evolution, biological evolution, for which 15 students inscribed. A fantastic experience, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I have later been told that the students mostly did as well. But I know that Brazilians are very polite, so I'm not sure. 2016, Janet and I had a course on taxonomy and ecology of freshwater ostracods in the Upper Paraná River. We had lab work, we had field work, we had some formal lectures. I think although the number of students was not very high, I think it was quite, for me again, it was a very nice experience. And it's interesting that this year we will do the second version of this course, which I now refer to as Ostracods 2.0. Again, there was a lot of, at that stage, I think there was a lot of field work with fantastic experiences. Of course, this course now, which will be next month, will be only electronically. So there will sadly be no field work and no lab work in which I can attend. In fact, it would have been fantastic if I could have given this talk now today in person in the Nakatani auditorium. But of course, we know that this is not to be, and we just hope that the situation will change for the better soon. During this time, I also participated in several Brazilian projects. There was the first one, 2004-2006, I already told you, which was coordinated by Fabinho. And then there were several more projects on ostracods after that, also coordinated either by Fabinho or directly by Janet. And you see on the picture that I know how to participate in the education of students, the students work, and the coordinator watches. May I tell you a little anecdote? There was around the time that I was involved in several of these projects, I had my biannual evaluation by my director in my institute in Brussels. So I had prepared a resume of everything I had done the previous years. And she said, tell me, why do you participate in 5 Brazilian projects? I said, would you really like to know why I participate in 5 Brazilian projects? Because I thought it's evident. Yeah? No, she said, I want to know why you participate in 5 Brazilian projects. And I said, well, it's simple. We were unlucky. We applied for 5 projects to have 1 or 2, but we were unlucky. We had them all. We had all 5 projects. Oh, she said, no, I see. And in fact, it's of course a joke when I say we were unlucky, because it's fantastic to have 5 projects. But I remember that my Brazilian colleagues, Fabinho, Janet, Felipe, and so on, had a lot of work in making sure that these 5 projects parallelly could work. For me, it was relatively easy because I am at 15,000 kilometers distance and only every now and then come and enjoy the benefits of such projects. May I tell you a little bit more about the 3 more general projects, so not ostracod projects, but more general projects in which I was involved. And I refer to PELT, Cisbiota, and the project of Ilha Grande. The PELT project is a project which is a long-term ecological research program. It is first coordinated by Dr. Angelo, then by Dr. Iliana, and then by Dr. Claudinia. For ostracods, it started in 2004 during the PhD project of Janet with a little backwater, which is close to Puerto Rico, Manezinho. And Manezinho was a small backwater, easily reachable from Puerto Rico. It had very nice, long, big stands of Echornia crassitas. And it was full of ostracods. So we decided to make a project on it, so like monthly sampling. The problem is that apparently these backwaters don't necessarily remain the way they are. And so first all the Echornia stands started to die, and then the backwater became just back, no more water. And it was sort of like filling up with sediment. Very sad, but we did have several years of sampling. And in 2007, Freshwater Biology accepted a paper on the Preston communities buffered by regional floods on ostracods in the Paranarivo floodplain. And in fact, this was our first paper in freshwater biology, and it was one of the first, maybe the first, on ostracods in Preston communities. So we were definitely very, very happy with it, and it was quite nicely cited as well. At this stage, of course, because Manezinho has died, if backwater can die, Janet is now participating with different other habitats and different other lakes. But may I, because I was also asked to give some assessments, some reflection on the different parts of PEA, may I give you a little bit of feedback on what I think of PELT? And I think PELT is extremely important for both PEA and Nupelia. I'm telling you nothing new, I'm sure. But I could see over the years that so many students have managed to do their thesis because of PELT, because of the field work and the data of PELT. It is an activity where Nupelia can actually, with all the different teams that work there, with all the different expertises that are there, actually jointly bundle these expertises in one and the same project. So I think it's extremely important for PELT and Nupelia. And I am very happy that in spite of the fact that some of the main funding of PELT disappeared some years ago, that Nupelia PEA managed to continue at least doing some sampling, if not as before, so that the monitoring of PELT continues. And this also then brings me to the importance of long-term ecological monitoring. It is basically the future. We have many projects in the past decades of 2 years of monitoring, 1 year of monitoring, and this is all very fine. But if you have the chances to have long-term monitoring, you can see what the effects will be of this new monster which is attacking us, the climate change. We can also monitor natural changes, and especially in floodplains, you can see seasonal as well as interannual fluctuations. You can follow up alien invasive species step by step when they come year after year closer and more widespread in the floodplain and so on. So I just want to say PELT is the bread and butter of Nupelia and PEA. This brings me to the project Sysbiota from the National System of Biodiversity Research, coordinated by Fabinho. And with regard to field work, lots of the logistics were coordinated by Felipe. This is a fantastic approach. Yeah, you have the whole approach of Sysbiota. You have 4 largest Brazilian floodplains, including Paraná, of course, Amazon, Araguaia, Pantanal. You have 10 groups of aquatic organisms, ranging from bacteria, plankton to fish, macrophytes, and including the ostracods this times. You have 20 lakes per floodplain, which is a very nice N value, and you have 2 seasons. So this is a fantastic project. I must say one of the most impressive ones I've ever participated in. In addition, I can imagine that the logistics of sampling have 8 sampling campaigns, twice in each of the 4 floodplains, must have been daunting. And I was very impressed that Nupelia/PEA managed to do that almost seemingly without much problems. Of course, there were problems, I know, but it all went in the end very, very successfully. And because I was believing in so much of this project, I made a big effort, and I was also facilitated by the organizers that I managed to get at least once in each of the 4 floodplains. So the Paraná, of course, people know by heart, so this was always relatively easy to sample. In Pantanal, we could go by bus. It was only 1,000 kilometers, nothing for Brazilian standards. They gave me the best seat in the bus because by then I was already building a bit of a belly. Araguaia, we flew, and it was an impressive floodplain with lots of storms and very impressive. And Amazon, of course, is every limnologist's dream. So really, really impressive experience for me to be able to be in all 4 floodplains. With my experience as an editor, I thought, we have something here. This is material for the top journals, Nature and Science. So I convinced my colleagues that we had to try to make this golden paper, as we referred it to for several years, to actually develop this. And several people took the lead. In the end, it was Fernando Lanzactoja and Nando, as we call him, with Felipe, who took the lead with the help of Bianca. Afterwards, Bini and Heino joined. And I must say that I have been stupefied that Nature didn't want it. Science sent it out to the wrong referees, and so on and so on. But in the end, Fernando never gave up, and we got it published in the Journal of Biogeography. And it is a testimony to one of the best projects that we have a fantastic paper, which I'm sure will be very, very highly cited. And the last project that I mentioned here, the general project, was coordinated by Felipe. Again, a lot of logistic work as well. It was on the effect of nutrient influx of the tributaries of the Paraná River. And I must say this was a very nice and timely approach to this particular research topic, because it is becoming more and more important. And Felipe and co-workers saw it very much as an important thing to do. And for me, it was also important to see what was actually outside of the actual floodplain of the upper Paraná River. So thank you very much that I could take part in each of these 3 fantastic projects. Many of the results of these projects and of different student theses led to, in 20 years, to 37 papers and 1 book chapter with the team of Janet Higuchi. I'll get back to the book chapter in a minute. The 37 papers were published in 25 journals, including Aquatic Ecology, Aquatic Sciences, Biological Invasions, which was a nice one because Janet and I compared the Pleuston of Echornia crassipes from both Amazon and the Congo River Basin. Freshwater Biology, I already showed you one. And it will be no surprise that we have 6 joint papers in Hydrobiologia. We also managed to have 1 paper in Nature, which we were very proud about. It's not a Brazilian project, but it is a project that Janet participate in a Belgian project that Janet participated in while she was at a postdoc in Belgium. And this one did get into nature simply because it was about urbanization. Of course, it was very well done. The project was well done. The persons who did all the analysis, Thomas Merks and Hans van Dijk, did a great job. But really, as they themselves said, it was mostly because there was this, nature considered it, because it had to do with one of these special topics, which is now urbanization. Nevertheless, Janet and I are very happy with it. I mentioned hydrobiologia, and I really cannot mention hydrobiologia without referring to my good friend, Nee. This is a picture of him that I always found most intriguing. Is Nee trying to climb up, or is he trying to go down? As I know him, I'm sure he's actually trying to climb up. Nee has been an associate editor of Hydrobiologia since 2004. Which means that he was very much involved in Hydrobiologia since early on in my own tenure as editor-in-chief, because I started in 2003 and I invited him as an editor in 2004. So he's been with my team of editors since almost the very beginning. We then, since the work became a little bit too much for one person to coordinate, we found 3 associate editors-in-chief to help me as the editor-in-chief. So 3 associate editors-in-chief, Nee since 2015. Since there are 3 associate editors-in-chief, we call them the 3 Musketeers, and which is a very nice name because they really do a lot of fighting for the benefits of hydro. Thanks to Nee, several people from PEA have become editors, have become involved in Hydrobiologia, some as editors, some as authors. And I can tell you it is definitely, for a large part, thanks to him, that Brazil is now one of the main and successfully contributed countries to Hydrobiologia. So thank you very much, Nee. This is just an overview. You see, he's now the associate editor-in-chief, one of the 3. We had Mauricio Luis Bini, which I refer to as Bini. We had Andre, we had Fernando, and Luis Gomez was editor for some time. Angelo kindly invited to be a member of the advisory editorial board since a couple of years as well. So the impact of Nee on Hydrobiologia and through Hydrobiologia on the contact with PEA, Nupelia and Hydrobiologia has been very, very important. Nee has also published or edited a book on the Upper Paraná River floodplain together with Angelo and Dr. Haan, who I don't know. And this was published in the Bakhurst series Biology of Inland Waters, of which at that stage I was series editor, not anymore now. But this book has been sought after very, very highly. And so I would like to thank Nee for all his efforts for me, for Hydrobiologia, and I wish him today, of all days, a very happy birthday, Nee. In 2011, Evanilde was the head of the international cooperation, and she arranged for us to make a bilateral agreement between the University of Maringá and my own institute in Brussels. That was a 5-year agreement, which lasted until 2016, and then in 2017 we renewed it. This has been an incentive, as much as that was necessary, an incentive to actually continue the collaboration with several people. And since 2011, we include in the acknowledgements of every of the papers that we publish together this statement that the State University of Maringá and the Royal Belgian Institute of Natural Sciences have a bilateral memorandum of understanding regarding collaborative scientific research. Thanks to Evanilde also, we managed to profit from the International Mobility Program. And Janet came to Brussels in 2012, and I managed to come in this framework to Maringá in 2015. It is no exaggeration to say that also thanks to the efforts of Evanilde, the internationalization of Maringá University as a whole, but also Nupelia and PEA specifically, have taken a very high flight. I'll get back to that later. May I now entertain you for a few minutes on the taxonomy of Brazilian ostracods? I told you that in 2001 I came the first time to Mariga to check if there were ostracods in the floodplain, because you never know. It was Felipe and Cynthia, his wife, who at that stage brought me together with Janet to Puerto Rico to do the first sampling. And I remember very well that there was already a little girl who was running around then with them, their daughter, and that there was a little son coming, but he was still firmly inside of Cynthia. So at that stage we discovered there were ostracods, and from then on we managed to collect many species. In total, I think about 60 now. This may not sound a lot from a fish point of view or phytoplankton point of view, but for small crustaceans, it is really a lot of species, a lot of biodiversity in one floodplain. Now, I know that PEA and Nupelia are mostly concentrating on ecological research, which is, of course, as it should, but taxonomy is the language of biology and of ecology. And one of the first things we discovered in this work on ostracods is that there were many unknown species. Almost half of them were never described. So Brazil, needs a lot of taxonomic work for its biodiversity, because we need to document. And the fantastic thing is that although PEA and also CNPq for certain part are concentrating on ecological research, they're still allowed for some thesis on ostracod taxonomy. And I would say that's fantastic. It's a really broad-minded view, and I would like to thank these funding agents, CNPq and PEA. So what we did was actually, along with ecological research, of course, we described new species and genera, fur à mesure, as they say in French, one at a time, and provided and drafted an identification chapter in Thorpe and Kovich. In fact, what we were doing with this taxonomic research was making ostracods into a model group for ecological research in Brazil, and especially, of course, in the Paraná. And I may say that after 20 years, we have made a lot of progress in that ultimate aim. So this is the chapter that I refer to, the chapter in the book. And the book is Thorpe and Kovich's Freshwater Invertebrates. Now, the older members of this audience will remember that for the longest time, first there was Kovich Freshwater Invertebrates Identification Guide, then there was Thorpe and Kovich Freshwater Identification Guide, but it was always for North America. And since that was the only comprehensive book with keys on freshwater invertebrates, people were using that guide for North American invertebrates in Europe, in South America, in Africa, in Southeast Asia. And of course, that's not a good thing, because the fauna is completely different. So Thorpe and Kovich decided that they would make volumes for each and every one of the faunal regions. And so this is the volume on the neotropical fauna, including Antarctica. And Janet and I provided a chapter on the identification of non-marine ostracods genera, which we hope will help to unlock the interest of many people, other than those from Maringa, into the freshwater ostracods of the neotropical. I think it is a very important tool that we have provided to South American people. We described new species, and I will show you some. This is a very nice common ostracod, Strandesia lanzactorhai, correctly named after Fabinho, because he helped Janet and me so much in developing our research on the Upper Paraná River floodplain ostracods. We could not pass by that Angelo deserved a species named after him, because he was at the start of the whole of Nupelia. Felipe Veloy has been very important for developing the research of Janet and me, has helped in many parts of the road. And of course, there is also a very famous pioneer of Nupelia, Professor Nakatani, whom we also named species after. Professor Thomas, our friend Ney, deserved also one. And we then thought, Nupelia. There has to be a Strandesia Nupelia as well, which has been published. And lo and behold, thanks to the work of, this is all done thanks to the work of several students of Janet, Victor and Nagini. And now Nagini is doing a revision of a genus called Physocypria. And this year or the next, we will publish a description of a new species called Physocypria PEA on the occasion of the 30 years of PEA. I come near the end of my exposition, and as I said, we were also asked, Kirk and me, to give some impressions on what we think is the evolution within PEA. And this is really impressions. So it's not an assessment, because I can only tell you what I have experienced personally after interaction with people during those 20 years. It's not a numerical assessment, so many papers for everybody and so on. This is another approach. I just gave you what, after 20 years and an additional 20 kilograms because of the picanha in Brazil, what I thought. And I think that more and more in those 20 years, I have seen PEA and Nupelia researchers, both the supervisors and the students, perform what I can only refer to as spearhead research in aquatic ecology. You have been testing extant hypotheses, you have been developing novel hypotheses that you have been testing, you're using novel analytical techniques, including modeling, and I will show you one picture of the modeling the distribution of ostracods by Eliezer. And the second thing is that I also saw an increasing internationalization, which is, I know, a strategic objective of the whole of the university, but in Nupelia and PEA it was also very visible. It can be seen in many ways. I give you only 3 examples. The knowledge of English with both professors and students has improved a lot. My first talk in 2001 was simultaneously almost translated by the very kind Claude-Denise Deitos. So she was standing next to me on the podium. I was saying one sentence, she was translating it in Portuguese. I was saying another sentence, she was translating it in Portuguese. Now my latest talks were all in English, and I have had the feedback that people were certainly understanding it. A second example of that improved knowledge of English was when I giving the course in evolution. I have a bit of a bad streak in my character. So when we started on the Monday, I said, sit back and relax the course, but know that on Friday, each of you is going to give a talk on evolution in English. And you could see all these people turn white in the face and becoming shivering and so on. Well, I can tell you by Friday, they were all giving a talk, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, on a certain subject on evolution in English. They did it. So I'm very proud that this has certainly been changed in PEA and in Nupelia. I can also see, of course, increasingly that people are publishing their papers in international journals with journal impact factor, rather than publishing only in Portuguese in local journals. There is nothing wrong with publishing in Portuguese in local journals when it is about a local Brazilian subject. If it is testing an hypothesis, a general hypothesis, it has to be published in English in an international journal. And this has definitely caught on in Nupelia PEA. And then I saw also that I see many more people going to international conferences, study leaves abroad, and so on. So internationalization and certainly increasing quality of international research. What could be expanded? You know, there's always something that can be improved. There are so many opportunities to work in this fantastic place, the floodplain, with remote sensing, where you can actually work with changing levels of nutrient levels that you can sense, that you can actually visualize by data from satellites. So this is definitely something that could be developed. Molecular work is still, I know it's happening in a few places, but it could still be developed more for taxonomy, and phylogeny, but also for phylogeography, which is more evolutionary ecology, to determine cryptic species, which is a field which is developing greatly. So molecular work could be further developed. And then, as I said, I understand that PEA is a course in ecology, of course, but some additional work on courses on evolution and evolutionary ecology would certainly also help. This is what I perceive from myself. I have never been able to see the curriculum of the different years that PEA is teaching. So maybe I'm wrong, and maybe this is already partly cured. But that's what I have perceived. I would be lying if I say that I only came to Brazil for work. I have taken a few trips as a tourist, and so I've seen Foz do Iguaçu, the fantastic, immense place, both from the Argentinian side where you see the water disappear, and from the Brazilian side where the massive amounts of water are coming. I've read now that this year there is an extreme drought and that the falls of Iguaçu are actually quite limited. But when I was there twice, it was immense. I've been to Rio. I've seen the fantastic beaches. Rio again with the sugar loaf. and Fernando de Coruña twice, fantastic. Several aspects of non-ostracot biodiversity have greatly impressed me, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a fantastic 20 years. I have many people to thank for that. I'll mention them, some of the most important ones here. Janet Higuchi and her many students, Angelo and Louise, Ney and Ho, Fabinho and Fernando, or should I say Fabio and Fernandinho, Felipe and Cynthia, Julia was there in 2001, Pedro not yet, but oh boy, Pedro and Julia are there now. Claudinia and Horacio, I immediately recognized the the action hero in American Westerns in Horacio. Alfredo and Chao, fantastic people with the boats. Nii and Chelshu, fantastic people with their cars, and Nii also with the barbecue. And Tatu, fantastic person about everything. And there's much work to be done to organize everything, and much of that work is happening in the shadow, so without being immediately seen. But I know that the coordinations and the secretaries of PEA and UPENA have done great, and many more. Most of these people have brought me to enjoy the sabores do Brasil, and I thank you. I thank you. And thank you for listening.
It was an honor to hear you today, Professor. I am sure all the people, the relationships were constructed, and they are all very happy. So now, just some quick reminders. The attendance list is in the chat. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, press the like button, and enjoy the event. And now I invite Professor Angelo Antônio Agostinho to introduce Professor Kirk Winemiller.
Okay. It's an honor for me to introduce Dr. Kirk to this that event, and I thank the organizer for this. Kirk collaborate with us since 1993, effectively since 1993, and we are very grateful for this. He influenced our way to research in fish ecology, not only me, but other people in Brazil also, in the world also. For nearly 30 years, we have enjoyed to work with Dr. Winemiller, exchanging students, developing research project, co-authoring paper also. In fact, Professor Kirk has an enormous contribution to development of fish ecology and conservation area globally. I consider him the most important leadership in the area. In addition to this, he has contributed to training new scientists and other professionals, mentoring students from around the world, especially that from the tropical region, including our students. His commitment and great passion to do science and mentoring are, in my opinion, some of the quality of his brilliant career. With over 250 scientific articles published, some of them has been seminal in basic research, such as life history, community, evolutionary ecology, but also for applied research and fisheries science and conservation biology. Okay, not only the academic paper. It's clear to me that Professor Winemiller publication influenced the direction of fish ecology and conservation research worldwide. Example are his publication on food web and life history patterns. Yeah, that has changed ecological paradigm and influenced the fishery management. The lab of the Kirk received many students from different parts of the world, yeah, attracted by the excellent research that they do there. I had the opportunity to stay there sometimes, and I felt inside the vibrant environment to discussion of fish ecology and conservation. There I meet not only students from Texas A&M University, but also others from the graduate program around the world. So I'd like to emphasize that really is a honor to me to present Dr. Kirk Owen Winemiller as a and had him in the faculty of the PEA faculty also. Huh? Okay, then it's an honor to present him here. Thanks, Kirk.
Thank you very much, Angelo. You're too kind. So now I guess I will screen share. Is that right?
Okay, that's.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Okay, are you seeing my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay. Let me begin then. Well, first of all, again, Angela, thank you very, very much. You're too kind in your words of introduction for me. I'm really honored and gratified to be with your group today on this momentous occasion, celebrating 30 years of your graduate program. I'm starting with this slide because, as Angelo mentioned, this was really the beginning of our relationship, and it's been an enduring relationship, I'm very happy to say, and many professional relationships in science and many good friends were established for me. And it began in 1993 at this conference, the American Society of Ichthyologists and Herpetologists Conference in Austin, Texas. I was a young assistant professor at Texas A&M University. I hadn't been there but 1 year, and I organized a symposium on the ecology of neotropical fishes. And I invited several of the leading people working on tropical fish in Central and South America. And that included these three individuals you see here, Luis Gomez, Horacio, and Angelo. And they're standing there with Rosemary Lowe McConnell, who is, to all of us, a goddess of of our field of study. She passed away a few years ago, but we were very fortunate that she came to the symposium, and we met many colleagues from all around the neotropics at that time. But this was just the beginning for us, for Texas A&M, and for the Universidad Estadual de Maringá, Nupelia, and PEA. We had many. I'm just going to show quite a few slides, and I tried to find some of my old slides. Unfortunately, they're not all scanned. So this was from around the year 1999, I believe. This picture was taken at Bonito, where we did the snorkeling trip to look at fishes. But over the years, in my visits to Brazil, my friends at Nupelia have been so kind to me and also my family. On this particular trip, I had my family with me. My children were still quite small. And we were able to visit a number of very interesting locations in Brazil. And I'm just so grateful to my friends in Maringá that have shown us such a great time over the years. Again, I wish I had some of my older photos scanned, but I don't. And Koen mentioned the barbecues. Yes, the barbecues at Angela's house are legendary. Some of you know this character, Paulo Petri, a crazy Brazilian guy, but pretty good with barbecue himself. And this was a dinner at Luis Gomez's house. And I don't really know what we were doing there. This looks like some kind of science fiction thing or something, but that's David Hoinghouse with the red shirt. Many of you know David. And Julian Olden standing behind me. I think this is like X-ray vision or something. I didn't know what we were doing there. This is a photo from when the Brazilian Ichthyological Congress was held in Maringá in 2012. So you can see Horacio and Clarinha, David Hoinghouse again, Julian Olden again, the crazy guy, Paulo Petri, and Nathan Lujan, a former postdoc of mine. This was a tremendous conference that the folks at Nupelia organized in 2012. Very well attended, very memorable conference. And afterwards, my friends organized a trip for some of the guests to go to Puerto Rico and see the floodplain. I never get tired of visiting the Upper Paraná River and floodplain. It's just a tremendous ecosystem. And as Koen mentioned, what's really most impressive about the work of Nupelia and all of the professors and students there and technicians is this long-term ecological research conducted on this ecosystem, but not just the fact that it's long-term, but the comprehensive nature of your research. You have investigators examining virtually every aspect of the biology and ecology of this large, complex, dynamic system. And I can't tell you what a unique thing this is. I really can't think of any other place, anywhere else in the world, where an academic group has continued with long-term research covering virtually every component of the ecosystem, from birds to fish to zooplankton to phytoplankton, aquatic macrophytes, nutrient dynamics. And I'll come back to this at the end of my presentation, why I think this is so important and presents such a great opportunity, not just to understand the ecology of that ecosystem, but to guide some critical developments, I think, in the field of ecology in general. I'll come back to that at the end. So this was from the 2012 field trip that we did after the Ichthyological Congress. You see David Hoinghouse and Julian Olden there. Here's the group at one of the campsites. And my friends know that I'm pretty passionate about angling. So this was an opportunity to catch a dorado. So I was very happy. I managed to get one. And we thought it might have been the world record dorado. So here you see Latini weighing the thing. I'm kidding. It wasn't anywhere near it. a trophy size, but it was a beautiful fish. And you see Luis here dissecting the fish, but I want you to notice that the cerveza is always available on these field trips. I don't know if they brought water along with the supplies, but there certainly was plenty of cerveza. In most of the photos, you see someone with a cold one, except Angelo. You will never see Angelo with a beer in the picture. I just think he's too serious, or maybe it's because he prefers cachaça. So Angelo mentioned over the years, we've had a lot of different students visit the lab in Texas. These are some that came for between 6 months to a year on federal funding from CAPES and CMPQ fellowships. Some of them came back multiple times. For example, Larissa and Eduardo had more than one long-term visit at Texas A&M. Texas A&M is not the garden spot of Texas. So the fact that they're willing to come back a second time, to me, was very encouraging. I'll talk more about Eduardo in a moment. And then I served on the PhD advisory committee for Mirtha Valencia, a student from Colombia. It was mentioned by Koen that the program at Maringá has now risen to such heights that it's attracting students from other countries, particularly in Latin America, but even other parts of the world, to come and study at the University of Estadual de Maringá. Over the years, I've done a couple of graduate courses, short courses. This was one in 2014. The focus was food web ecology. As you can see, it was pretty well attended, and I must say I enjoyed it immensely. And I do agree that the English language skills of the students in PEA are outstanding, and we had no difficulty communicating. And it was a very rewarding experience, I can tell you, for me. And then we did it again in 2015. I think the topic for this one was meta-communities and community assembly. Again, a pretty good crowd participated in this one. Over the years, my lab has collaborated with folks at Nupelia. This is just some of the papers from the 2000s that we published. A couple of these are book chapters. Those two book chapters, I can tell you, are pretty highly cited works that summarize the state of the art. And then in the 2010s, some more papers, some examples of our collaborations. I don't want to go into a discussion of every one of these, but one notable one that I'll mention is this perspective paper that we published in 2016 in Science that addressed the challenge of the increase in hydropower development, particularly in tropical countries. We focused on the Amazon, the Congo, and the Mekong, but really the issue is the tropics and developing countries that need energy. And hydropower is seen as a solution to the energy needs, a source of so-called green energy. And we managed to get this piece published in Science, and it's already been cited nearly 1,000 times, which is amazing. So I guess we achieved our objective. We wanted to draw attention to this incredible challenge of balancing our energy needs, particularly in the developing world, with the need to conserve fisheries and biodiversity, aquatic biodiversity. And my Brazilian colleagues, particularly Angelo Agostinho, Luis Gomez, and Fernando Pellicisi, and you see also Paula Petri included here, and some others from Brazil, but their insights were key to the message we were trying to get across here. And I think that's because perhaps more than anyone else in the tropical, subtropical belt on the planet, it's the folks at Nupelia that have been dealing with these issues of fluvial network fragmentation, environmental flows, the impact of flow regulation on the ecological dynamics of mega diverse fluvial ecosystems. They've been at the forefront of studying these issues. And I'm very, very grateful that I had their knowledge to rely on when I put together this group of authors. And I think this paper has had some impact. So thanks very much to Angelo and my other colleagues at Nupelia for all you've done over the years to advance research in this area. We have had some international students come to get their degrees at Texas A&M. Fred Kepler is a very recent one. He has an association with PEA in Maringá, but he ended up joining my lab and was one of the best students I've ever had. I can honestly say that. He's currently a postdoc at the University of Wisconsin in the US. For a time, I had Pythagoras Piana, who I know earlier in his career was at Maringá, and now he's a professor in I forget the name of the city. It's the Universidad Estadual de Paraná del Oeste. And we brought Pythagoras to College Station to work with me and with Eduardo Cunha to work on a model that I'm going to tell you about in a moment that we think is going to be a useful tool for dealing with issues like flow regulation in river floodplain ecosystems. So Pythagoras is very gifted with mathematics and computer coding. And we sent him to Canada to work with another Brazilian who's gifted with mathematics and computer modeling, and that's Enrique Giacomini, who is now living and working in Canada. But Giacomini had worked with Miguel Petreri and others, some colleagues of mine in the US, and produced an individual-based model of food web dynamics. And so Pythagoras went to Canada to work with Giacomini and to get his code and to give us the beginnings of a simulation model. And Eduardo Cunha, here's a picture of Eduardo on the banks of the Guadalupe River in Texas. He helped out on a project we did on the Guadalupe River. Eduardo also is incredibly gifted with mathematics and computer programming. And so Pythagoras and Eduardo together started collaborating with Angelo and Luis and I on developing an individual-based simulation model of food web dynamics on the Upper Paraná River and floodplain system, the system that Nupelia has been studying for so many years. And the reason we chose this system is because you need a lot of data. You need a lot of empirical data to build a simulation model of the complexity that we were planning to build on top of Giacomini's effort. And so we're calling this model RIV Webscape. It's a food web model on a landscape. And this model we're starting with is for a river system, as I mentioned, the Upper Paraná and its floodplain. So this is an individual-based model, spatially explicit. It operates on a daily time step. It accepts both topography data as an input, as well as hydrology that flows over that fluvial landscape. And then we populate it with fish. We have rules for aquatic primary productivity and prey productivity at the base of the food web. And we've come a long way. This has been about a 4-year effort. And stay tuned. I think we're just about ready to publish the first description of the model. Eduardo is still finishing the programming aspects of this model. He's running it on the mainframe computer at Texas A&M University, the supercomputer, parallel processing on the supercomputer at Texas A&M. And Eduardo has been employed as a postdoc in my lab for the last 2.5 years. So I'm going to conclude by plugging our new book. So I told you I love angling. I love fishing. And my favorite fish are the peacock bass. And I know that other people also enjoy fishing for peacock bass, including the Gomez brothers, who were kind enough to take me out fishing on a reservoir on the Upper Paraná one afternoon. Unfortunately, this is an introduced species in the system. This is Cichla kelberi. And because I haven't been able to come to Brazil over the last 1.5 years because of the COVID pandemic, I've had to bring my peacock bass and Brazil to my home. So I just want to share with you an aquarium that I had a local construction guy build at my house. This is a 3,500 gallon aquarium that I'm simulating the Amazon River with various species of peacock bass. So I've got 7 of the 9 recognized species of peacock bass, along with some other Amazonian fish swimming around in a tank at my home. But I'm hoping this pandemic ends soon and that I will be able to reunite with my friends in Brazil. I really hope so. And I'm going to end also with a sincere expression of gratitude for my friends in Maringá, my dear friends, my highly valued colleagues, wonderful students that I've been able to interact with over the years. In my career, I have to say that my relationships with the folks in Maringá have been the most important in my entire career. And I'm very grateful. So with that, I'm going to conclude. And thank you again for letting me be a part of this celebration.
Thank you for your lovely words, Kirk. It was an honor to hear you. Now we have some time for questions, and I'm going to bring back Ney, Angelo, and Koen. So
okay, just before the questions, Kirk And Koen, thank you very much again for sharing this moment, this very important moment with us. And be sure that you both are part of our lives. I talked to Koen about that, and when we were trying to decide who would come for this important moment, of course, we interacted with many people over the years, but you were by far the first two that came first to our minds. Because we have a long time experience and with, I would say, very successful experience together with both of you. So thank you very much. You helped us a lot. You helped me individually, but the group as a group, PEA and PEA, you are part of this team. I'm very sure about that. So thank you very much, and thank you for your kind words. I'm sure there are some questions, but I don't know if Angelo, you would like to say something, Angelo.
Yeah, I'd like to thank also. It was both is very important to development of our graduate course. Then, thank you. Congratulations for the presentation.
Yeah, and thank you for the kind words.
Well, I
You were
can
very
tell
kind.
you that
Maybe too much.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
I can tell you that when the Brazilian students come to my university, it's a tremendous benefit for our students. In fact, our students tell me all the time, please, Dr. Winemiller, send more Brazilian students here. We learn a lot from them, but also they're a lot of fun. They're great people. And the Brazilians really know how to work hard and do excellent research. But they're also just wonderful people that know how to have fun as well. And I think that's very important. So my students have forged some very strong relationships with the Brazilian students that have been here. And as you guys know, I mean, David Hoinghouse, who came to Maringá as a single man, as a student, returned to Texas with a wife, a Brazilian wife. So, I mean,
yes,
there have been many strong relationships forged over the years.
Yeah. Mateus, I think.
Okay, so the first question is Mateus Aleixo. He asks, congratulations to both professors, an honor to meet you. I would like to know, what is different about the science and scientists that then you observed here in Brazil and in each one's country? So it's for
well, I can address that question, and I think that Koen actually expressed this viewpoint very well. Exactly what I was thinking. You've come a long way in the almost 30 years that I've been interacting with the folks in Brazil. And a lot of it has to do with English language skills, but also the level of science has just taken quantum leaps, I believe. So now the folks in Brazil are publishing in the top tier international journals. It's just impressive. I mean, it's been a quantum leap. It really has. And there's absolutely no difference between our students and our academics. I mean, if the question is what's the difference, right now there's no difference in my opinion.
Well, I fully agree. With regard to quality of research, it's definitely very, very comparable. So basically what you're asking me is to define what it is to Brazilian, because that's the difference. These people are Brazilian. And it's just a fantastic task that I have set myself for the past 20 years to understand what it is to be Brazilian. And I hope I can do the same thing for the next 20 years. And then that people from Nupelia would declare me honorary Brazilian, because it is something to look up to, the way that what Kirk said, that you combine hard work with the joie de vivre, with the pleasure of life, the way of being able to enjoy life. You are in a harsh environment in the floodplain of the Paraná. It's beautiful, but it can be quite harsh. What do? You bring in a boat with lots of beer, with lots of meat, and you have a barbecue and a party, a fiesta that is comparable to none that I know. So it's that. So give me another 20 years, and maybe then I can tell you in more detail what the difference is between Brazilian scientists and the rest of the world. But I start to enjoy the difference from the very beginning.
Okay, and so the second question, a comment and a question. Regarding Brazil's battered image abroad due to Bolsonaro's disastrous environmental policies and handling of the pandemic, how bad is Brazil's image in the scientific community? And are there any implications for 2022? Are scientists less interested in visiting and researching in Brazil?
Oh my goodness, what a question. Well, look, coming from the perspective of the United States, where we experienced Donald Trump, I don't think you need to worry about how your president may influence people's image of the science and the opportunities to do science in Brazil. In my mind, there's absolutely no relationship. So yes, we are anxious to return to Brazil. We are anxious for our Brazilian colleagues to come and visit us. It's only because of the pandemic situation and some of the restrictions that were placed upon us. I can only speak for my university, but we had restrictions placed upon our international travel by the university administration. So that was a big problem. And some of that is still in place. Unfortunately, we're not finished with the pandemic here in Texas. And you talk about, the image we project to the outside world. I think we're the ones with the problem in the U.S. and especially in my state, Texas, where we have the vaccine freely available for everyone. Everyone who wants the vaccine can get it immediately for free. But we have many people that haven't taken advantage of that opportunity. So we're the ones with the problem. This pandemic will pass in one way or another. Unfortunately, there may be, more people ill and even fatalities, but it will pass. And we will reestablish our face-to-face interactions, I'm sure. So yeah, to answer the question, I mean, there's no deficit for Brazil's image abroad, at least not in my mind. We're just waiting to reestablish our face-to-face interactions.
Fully agree, Kirk. I was lucky enough to be in Brazil in February last year, just before the pandemic started. And I seriously considered staying, not going back, knowing that there would be a ban on flights back. No, seriously. So I also look forward to coming back. I check flights basically weekly. And with regard to politics, well, it's not my place to voice any opinion on that, other than you're not alone. We call Bolsonaro, we call him Tropical Trump. There is a guy in London who is called Baby Trump, after the Brexit. So this sort of situation is happening in several parts of the world, and by no means, and I repeat, by no means does that kind of person reflect badly on the people, and certainly not on the scientists, because that was the question, science and researchers. So absolutely not. Thank you, Louise. That's a very nice comment that I see appearing. Very big compliment. So and as you know, as for Kirk, I can't wait to be able to be allowed to come back to Brazil and continue our collaboration. We have, Janet and I have students, and at least 2 of them really need input, and we try to do our best with this kind of meetings, but nothing replaces the personal contact, sitting next to each other at the microscope, sitting next to each other at the screen of a computer and writing a paper together. You know, it's just it's what we miss most. It's what we miss most. So don't worry, we still love and admire you as much as before. Don't let this one guy ruin your life.
Luiz Braguin comments, thank you, professors. Please summarize in one sentence your feelings about 20, 30 years working with PEA.
Okay, Kirk, you want to go first?
Only one sentence? That's the challenge. Nearly 30 years of amazing scientific accomplishments and enduring special relationships with my friends.
Okay, I'll give it a go. Best 20 years in my professional and personal life, and best 20 kilograms I've ever gained.
And now Fernanda Moreira comments, congratulations for your book, you both. It was amazing. I'm sure you are aware about some political problems we are going through in Brazil. And the question, how do you see from an outsider vision that these problems affecting the science in Brazil and PEA, and how could we overcome it all?
Well, I think I can't, again, as Koen said, I can't really comment on the politics. Not my place to do that, but I think you just have to focus on your program and maintaining it as best you can with the funding sources that are available. I do realize that the opportunities for CAPES funding for international exchanges for students has declined the last few years. We're certainly aware of that. Can that previous level of funding be reestablished? We can only hope, because that was such a wonderful thing that students had this opportunity. And as I said before, we benefited very much at my university and my department from the students who were able to come here. So, I think you can only do so much about national politics, right? But you can focus locally, like just take care of the things you can control. That's what I tell people here. We get frustrated as well, believe me.
Yeah, exactly that. So, we already said a few things about the political situation. It's not unique. In my own country, the federal level of which I belong is eating our budget. I mean, it's nothing compared to what you're going through, of course, but the key words is being adaptive and agile. And I think that is one of these things that Brazilians are fantastically good in. You are just, able to adapt to any situation and make the best of it. And what I already mentioned in my talk, when you got faced with the fact that the PELT program was not extended, that your funding was not extended, you just managed to make the most of it, the best of it, and continued. Instead of 4 times, you went twice a year and so on. But the database will remain continuous. And so, be like that. Do what you can and concentrate on the science. concentrate on the science, because that's what you're very, very good at.
And now Vinny comments, Dear Koen and Kirk, congratulations for the great talks. If you were to start a new project in the Upper Paraná River floodplain, what would be the main question you would like to answer?
Again, only one? Please, Kirk, go ahead.
Well, there are just so many questions. Gosh, where to start? I mean, I'm very interested in the food web dynamics, but of course that's a very complex set of questions involved with understanding food web dynamics. This is what we're trying to get at with the modeling approach, the RIV webscape approach that we're taking. It's not that, as I'm sure everyone's aware, simulation modeling does not reproduce what we think nature is doing with high fidelity. That's not really the objective of the modeling. It's to dissect the system in a way that you can play games on the computer and kind of come up against the limits of your knowledge. And then that motivates new questions and new empirical studies to come back and try to fill those gaps. So that, we're going to find, we've already found a lot of gaps in our knowledge of the ecology and what drives the dynamics of the components of the food web and the Upper Paraná River and floodplain system. There's just a lot of fundamental questions that we have. What's the role of density dependence and population dynamics? How does that vary for fish populations with different life history strategies? That's a fundamental question, but I'm not sure what would be the field study that I would design to start to tease that apart. Experiments are difficult, although the folks at New PEA have done their fair share of field experiments, which to me is impressive because I know they're very difficult to do. But you all have done a number of manipulative field experiments. There could be some of those that could be done to disentangle some of these food web dynamics. The simulation modeling and then just collecting the empirical data to test whether or not the model's making valid predictions. One thing I would do is continue your long-term monitoring to the extent that the funding will allow you to do that, because those long-term data sets are going to be invaluable for validating models like RIV webscape. So I don't know if that's a good answer. I was kind of all over the place with that, but I'll pass the cone.
Yeah, thanks, Kirk. Well, as you know, I'm more of an organismal biologist and more into evolution, evolutionary research, speciation, evolutionary ecology. And so, if I may, since we are hypothetically speaking here, I would like a sysbiota too. I would like to once again go to the 4 floodplains, not just Paraná, in order to ask questions on how did the diversity originate, the different species, because with molecular methods, how can you actually see the cryptic species distinguishing themselves from each other? What's the timing about it? And the second question, then how can they maintain this diversity with regard to the exchanges of biodiversity between the floodplains? So for a short paper which resulted from sysbiota on one species cluster, I went into a little bit of the geological history of that part of Brazil, the different floodplains. It's absolutely fascinating. Over the last million years or so, there has been a fantastic dynamic with regard to different rivers and river basins. So, of course, this would be a completely different kind of approach and very much fundamental. And at this moment in my life and in my career, I also worry more about conservation measures. And I can tell you, if I would have been more aware of that sort of situation when I was younger, I would probably have taken much more that direction in my research. At this moment, I can only recognize the absolute need for it and the fact that we are basically not equipped to understand all the different measures that we've taken. I followed a bit at the scale of Flanders and Belgium, and you can see that there is so many different measures that have been taken in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, which were completely wrong, which now have effects not only on biodiversity, but on people community. Like we had all these meandering lowland rivers, small streams, big rivers, nothing like Paraná, of course, smaller. And the main engineering that was done was actually to straighten them, make them go straight. Yeah. So instead of allowing the water to sort of permeate into all the surrounding country, the idea was to bring it as soon as possible to the coast and into the sea. With as a consequence that on the one hand, if there is a drought, there is immediately a shortage of water. And when there is a lot of rain, you immediately have inundations. So that is actually the aspect of the effects of water management on people communities. Now you have different but similar situations with all your damming of all the dams on the Paraná River. And so I think that would be a second issue. That is, how can we make sure that several of the mistakes that have been made earlier on, how can they be corrected and give a lot more of the land back to the water, including the aquatic biodiversity? So these are two extremes, yeah. But on the one hand, I want my fundamental questions answered. On the other hand, I feel deeply now that with this, increasing demonstration of climate change, we need, as a scientist, we also have a very big responsibility with regard to conservation of our aquatic biodiversity, but based on science, on real science, and not just on assumptions like was done in the 1970s, 80s, and so on.
We have another question from Christina Butaka. She asks, do these species occur only in the Upper Paraná River floodplain? The species in honor of researchers.
No, some do. So we have this. All of this work results from part of the Sysbiota project. So we have material from the 4 floodplains, and some species occur in several floodplains, some in only one. And several of the species, as we demonstrated with molecular methods, actually consist of several cryptic species. And then we try to connect these cryptic species, the occurrence of the cryptic species in the different floodplains, to have some sort of a historical biogeography of these different entities, genetic and biological entities. And this is just a very, a beginning. And this is why I'm saying this is a sort of the paper that demonstrated, the study that demonstrated that, in fact, for that sort of study, for that sort of questions, you need to go outside of Paraná and go to the 4 floodplains again, and maybe intermediate stations as well for that sort of questions. And this is why I'm saying we need Sysbiota too. But of course, we will have to wait a little until the situation in Brazil changes again. But yeah, there would be many, many very valuable questions, both fundamental and applied, that can actually find each other in an approach, a Sysbiota approach with the 4 floodplains.
So thanks a lot for sharing your valuable experiences. Be certain that your partnerships are cherished in PEA, and we hope to see you soon. And now, if Ney and Angelo would like to say some final words.
Vai lá, Angelo.
Okay. I thanks again both the speaker, because they have done a big contribution to the development of the Nupelia and the PEA, no? And congratulations for the speakers. And I hope we can see face to face early.
Yes, thank you again. I emphasize that you both, along with others you all were very important for our development in the last 30 or 35 years. And I remember you both mentioned that in the beginning, there were rarely people who could speak English. And on that time, especially Angelo intended to bring people from abroad, and that, I think you started in the beginning of our internationalization, which was very important, not only for us as researchers, but mainly for our students. So thank you both again for your contribution, and I do hope to see you soon, face by face, and we will see each other soon, face by face. Thank you very much.
Muito obrigado.
Obrigado.
Congratulations for 30 years. Congrats.
Okay.
Congratulations indeed. Well done. Another 30, please. Another 30.
So for our subscribers, we will be meeting again next Tuesday at 5 p.m. For the roundtable discussion on experiences of foreign graduates of PEA. Students from Colombia, Paraguay, Peru, and Argentina will share their experiences with us. On behalf of the coordination, I also thank Beatriz Contieri that helped us with StreamYard today, and have a lovely week.